I'm life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hey DIY ass kickers! This is the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast with guest Gila Nehemia. Gila authored chapter 22 in volume 3 of the Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing series titled Erotic Words Expressing Sexual Desire to Heal Trauma. Gila is a spiritual heart guide. From a young age, she dedicated her life to sharing her light through her poetry, books, videos, and conscious collaboration. She channels her words from source to heal and guide you to open up your creative gifts to transform your life and raise human consciousness. Her mentoring focuses on trusting your internal GPS, intuition, body, and heart. Her guidance helps you increase awareness of your own divine body and heal traumatic wounds through writing, movement, meditation, breathwork, and self-affirmations. The types of trauma that Gila can help you heal from are PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, related to grief, and chronic trauma such as bullying, domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual abuse. Gila's authentic inner heart healing empowers you to live a divinely creative and sensually blissful life. And congrats are in order since Gila's first solo book has just been released on Amazon. It's a poetry collection called Surreal Love. You might want to check it out. Let's start talking to Gila. So welcome, Gila. I'm very, very happy to have you here. I think we have a really hot topic and might be a little pun in there, maybe, I don't know.
Thank you, Dianna, for having me. So excited to be with you today.
You are so welcome. So tell us a little bit about what brought you to write about healing trauma through getting your sexual needs met.
Yeah, it was definitely a journey, like all of us have had. Very challenging journey at that. But to be honest, I always found some peace in desire since I was young. And since I guess it was around 10 or something, when we begin to realize we have different parts of our bodies and we, get attuned to our hormones. And I was just kind of latent in like just exploring that, though, with all the different things that happened to me, a lot of tragedies in my life. My parents passed away when I was young, and then I got into a very, my romantic relationships primarily were challenging. Of course, the guys that were not challenging, I said no to them. The challenging ones.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, right. But and then I was in a domestic violence relationship, which is why I deal with that specifically for many, many years. It was my late husband. And then he passed on, and I realized, I suddenly was like, listen, 3 is a big number for me. So it's like 3 people died. They were really close to me, like something's going wrong. So I started to kind of just be aware, but I had already moved out of the country into Israel, like where his family is, where I am right now. And I just still had some challenging relationships. And I was like, suddenly again, I was just like I had a very, very toxic relationship that I think many of us can relate to. And then I said to myself again, like something's really wrong. Because it wasn't just talk, I was also numbing myself with drugs and alcohol, things were just really bad. And I have 3 children. And I finally kind of said to myself, I realized another pattern that I was like, well, listen, if I don't get my act together, I don't know what's going to happen with my kids. Just suddenly like that motherly instinct, like kind of kicked in. And I was like, I can't just harm myself because that's my pattern or whatever that is. I didn't even know what it meant. But getting back to your question, one was that, so that was streaming through my consciousness. And then the other thing was, I've had pretty passionate relationships, and I always was very into my sexuality. And I finally, but I held myself back. On some levels, I used to always hold myself back, and I think people could probably relate to that. You know, it's like when I put my foot in the water with a few, experiences, but I would always go back to center and be like, okay, no, that's not for me. I need to follow the regular route.
Yeah. And can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, of course, please.
What comes up for me are trust issues. If you had been in so many, not so great relationships, it's really hard just to give all of us to someone new. Yeah. So, okay,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. You're right. And I would find myself in situations with other people. And I think this is really an interesting point that I like to share. I don't always share, but I think it's important. I'm feeling like it's important now to share this. I noticed in my, before this kind of big transformation occurred to me, for me, I had been in some relationships and I didn't understand why they weren't working. It was like, it was like a good vibe between the people. Then they suddenly be like, no, we need to stop, or somehow something would happen between us. And I felt a vibe. I was like, there's something wrong here. I started to get into my intuition. And so when this last very kind of dysfunctional relationship ended, I really just, I had been listening to You Love Yourself, You Gotta Love Yourself. This is 4 years ago and I said, okay, I just have to do this. I have to really love myself, because on a mental level, I thought I did, but clearly my physical reality was not showing that to me.
Yeah. And they are different, aren't they? Yeah, yes. As much as we tell ourselves what we need to be doing, if we don't absorb it and become it, it's just words.
Right. Exactly. And I didn't really understand narcissism and all that stuff, and I was realizing I was in, obviously manipulative relationships. I just kept recycling them with different energy. And I was done, and that's the point that I want to share, that I've been listening to a lot of people, and many times, it could be an accident and it could be many things. And they're just I surrender. And that was that point for me. I surrendered with that relationship. I said, I'm surrendering. I don't want this. And I actually spoke to the divine and I said, this is what I want. True love is what I want. And I finally realized the only way to get that was to embody it. And that began a huge, healing of myself. And another person, was involved with me, and, he was part of the whole transformation, though it was really about me, and continues to be about me stepping into my power, about me stepping into what I want. And regardless of, who comes into my life and who leaves my life, I've realized the commitment is to my own vision, and it's that faith and surrender and trust, and really it's also about, a lot of it is releasing and letting go of the attachment to what we think we should have, and allowing what we really desire to show up in any way it needs to.
Yes. So I want to ask you, though, if you will explain a little bit for the listeners about that sense of surrender, and allowing, because again, that's one of those things that, I hear that all the time, about, oh yeah, that happened, but I'm just going to let it go. Well, we don't let it go. There is actually a process. So can you talk a little bit about your process, or what you even suggest with your clients?
That's fantastic. I think it's an ongoing process, to be completely honest, especially to 2020, for maybe a lot of us, I've been hearing were surrender. We couldn't do things that we might have wanted to do just because of the situation. Though for myself and my clients, I really focus on, because for many of us who've had chronic trauma, it's not about, it's not just a mental story. It's a physical embodiment of that story in our cells. And so it tends to be something that we need to let go of on a continual basis, because there are layers and layers and layers and layers of this kind of I don't know how to even call it, but this, you're holding yourself back.
Right.
And, you take like a little baby starts to walk by holding something, and then, starts to stand up and will fall. It's like an ongoing process till they can actually stand, and it's still like a teeter-totter until they can walk. So I feel like that's a very analogous to us. At any point in our lives when we're making a change, it's like sometimes we go back and it's like a dance. We go back and forth and back and forth. And anyway, to answer your question, I would say that to celebrate every step of the way when things are happening, because you are letting go, and sometimes we're just really hard on ourselves. And to allow, really the process that I focus on is about allowing the mind chatter to slow down and really focus on the truth that is within your heart. Right. That is really the crux of my message.
Right. Love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. So, and I want to relate that back to the sexual needs and desires that we have. And I want to focus on that partially because that's your thing, and I think you apparently do it really well. I loved your chapter in the book, by the way. I couldn't put it down. It was almost like soft porn, just a tiny bit, and good, like feminist self porn. Yeah. Anyway, it was awesome. I loved it. But I think it's really an important place for women to go because, we chatted a tiny bit before the show started. It's always at the bottom for us, and then it can get mixed up with, well, fine, I will participate in sex with my partner because I have to, or I kind of want to, but without that, completely expressive desire of your needs and wants. It's like, you're not actually participating as an equal partner. So I love what you said, and that's where that took me. I love what you said about how I will just rephrase as being aligned to yourself, however you see yourself, relative to your needs, and making that happen whenever you can, and celebrating that as a way to heal. I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really, to be honest, when we were speaking about this, I just wanted to share something. Those of you who might be starting a business or in a business, one of the first things I did, I joined a program, and it's related to this, so just keep on with the little story with me. But one of the things that we were first taught to do was to have interviews. Have interviews with people who are experts. Just because we're just opening ourselves up, and to just get their they get their expertise and to understand how they went about their building their business on the same theme. The themes that we were focusing on. Anyway, so we had like an email template that we had to send out, and I got no responses. Like for many I just didn't get, I was hitting all the people that I thought were in my field, but no one responded to me. And I was just like, why? And so I said, okay, I need to put myself in this. I put my poem about, it was like raw, euphoric yell. I forgot what the name of the poem was exactly, but it was about, really just being in the moment of having this extreme joy with another person, in this real act of love and pleasure. And people suddenly started responding to me, because it was a piece of me that they felt connected to. And it was obviously related to my topic of self-pleasure. And so I think it's so important, I find, because it's the focus of the Sacral Chakra, which is both love and money. And when we can open that up, it opens up our creativity. And because I was so shut down from my relationships, and because I wasn't speaking my truth, I wasn't, like you talk about, I wasn't opening my voice to share my needs, even if it was something simple like, I don't know, pick me up at 8 instead of 8:30. I don't know. It could have been something that simple, but I had so much fear because of a variety of different things that happened in my life. So, and when I stepped into this new space with this other person, it was just that I decided I don't care what this person says. I have the right to have what I want. And even if they say no, it doesn't matter. There are so many other people out there. You know, like I stopped being attached to like, this has to be with this person for the rest of my life. You know, and of course, but I'm saying that in like degrees. You know, of course I still had it, but I was moving towards that. So that's why I talk about the baby too, because even though we're saying we're not attached and we want to let go, we still want the story. You know what I mean? It's so hard to disengage from the story that we were brought up with. Though I feel that all of us inside of our hearts, like there's a map there. And if we follow that map, wherever, it's a very cyclical and spiral, it's not straight line. So when we follow it, wherever it's going, you will get there. So, you know, stay with yourself. You know, that's why we're here. We're coaches, you know, we help people, but that's what we're here for. So I hope I answered your question, but I think that the first thing was to begin to get my desires met, you know, and even if it was a little thing, like just, you know, hold my hand now because I really need to feel you. Just little things like that were so huge for me because it was so hard for me to express myself at that point.
Wow. You know, I liked that you described it in the way that you did because I think that a lot of women feel as though if they are too demanding, it's not representative of who they are or what they, you know, their relationship, their role in the relationship or something like that. So to be able to use that as an example, your example about simply asking, you know, this is what I want, and it's okay if you don't want to give it to me. You know, I'm asking anyway. If you don't, that's okay, that's cool, you know. And let the relationship go where it's going to go, as opposed to, oh my gosh, now I'm in trouble, he doesn't want to do that, so I need to change me. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think so many of us have been in that spot because we're so attached to wanting to be attached, you know. But what I realized was actually freeing to finally state what I want and allow the other person to state what they want and decide, do we want to continue this together or do we not? Are we still not even ready to make that decision? I mean, there's so many possibilities. And just allowing all of that to unfold, just like we would do for our children. You know, like we don't say you have to choose, you know, well, these are the possibilities and do it when you're ready. You know, like, are we asking ourselves, are we telling ourselves the same thing that we tell our kids?
Yeah, really good point. Really, really good point. Yeah. I think it's, you know, the term that is coming up for me is and it's a terrible term, but slut shaming. You know, when we become, in quotes, too demanding or too sexual or whatever. And you know, I don't think that there's any such thing. You know, I mean, especially in the way that you're describing, because it's not, you know, it's not, it's a concert. It's a, you know, it's developing and growing a relationship. It's not, you know, it's not overtaking, right? Which is, I think, the perception of that terrible term I just used. It really is. I know it's terrible. And what is coming to me is that it's not just about our sexual relationships either. That's how we should be functioning in every part of our relationships and in our lives. If we take a look, and I call it our deep core, if we take a look inside and understand what's there and what we need, then, you know, how do we get that? And how do we get it in a way that honors us? And sometimes it's not just saying, now, I want this now. Sometimes it's saying, well, this is what I'm ready for. What are you ready for? Just, you know, that dance that you were describing. So yeah, it's one piece, but it's that, I think for a lot of women, it's that really scary piece, you know, and that's very private piece that we don't always talk about. You know, we don't, you know, I'll be really interested to get the feedback on this podcast because I think it's an awesome topic. I'm so happy that you're here talking about it. but it's still in this day and age, unbelievably so, it's still taboo, so I
It
love that you're
is.
bringing it up.
Thank you, thank you. It is really taboo, and to be honest, I think that even my own family, I mean, I would start to, talk about this and stuff, and I was really a little bit nervous when I met my uncle a couple of years ago, in New Jersey, and he wasn't opposed to anything. He was actually hoping I could help, like situations like with pedophiles and stuff, like people who've been sexually in very difficult situations. And I mean, I was just surprised that he was open to it. But I think that because I come from the angle of spirituality. So really, my book, Surreal Love, it's a Kundalini awakening poetry. And it tells about the whole story of just my challenges and then stepping into a new paradigm in my own mind of love, and it's all about self-love and divine love. But of course, the partner love as well. And I think that when we begin to allow ourselves to have that, permit ourselves to have pleasure in the way that we want to, it not only empowers us, it empowers our children, and it empowers our partner and everyone around us. Because this is the way we're meant to be. We live in a human body, and it's meant to be explored and loved in the way that we want to be loved. And if we're not getting it there, we're not, like you said, we're not getting it in other places in our lives. So if we can, like somebody taught me this once, or I think it's said all over, like when you do one thing right, you're going to start to do everything else right. So when my relationship was going well, I was like, okay, so my relationship's going well. So I know then my business is also going to go well, because I'm going to use that same template, be really real and raw and, straight and honest. And the energy just goes through you. It's like, like when you're just really honest with your clients, and then they feel it and they trust you. So that was the difference between my previous relationships. I was finally just being honest with this person, even in challenging things like, running after him in the beginning, like because I really wanted to be with him, or, like I'm just having an honest conversation about it and not trying to hide or, become like, oh no, I wasn't really doing that, like,
no, that wasn't me on the phone.
right, yeah. Not trying, because I was really good at hiding. I really knew how to hide a lot. And I finally was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's good, he's here or not here, even if I get hurt, I can get over it. But I'd rather know, because then it was always just about the truth. Because I just said, I'd rather know the truth than to be thinking I'm in this illusion and running this program in my mind that wasn't true. Mm-hmm. That was more important to me than anything else.
Right on. Yeah. So how do you recommend, and I, obviously you had your tool in the book, and I'm just going to show this pretty book. Isn't that nice, guys? And I have a little thing. Gorgeous. Gila Chapter. Yeah, it's a great book. So I'm curious, you have your tool in there, but would you just talk a little bit about getting, how women can actually get clear about what they want sexually?
Well, I think it's a really important topic. And I think that the first way to get clear, especially about what they want sexually, is to release the stories of what happened. Because, I have obviously, a lot of clients that have been through a lot of different types of trauma. And, for example, it could be, even in my own case, that men are going to hurt me. Men are going to, because I was physically abused. So I'll just take my own case because I don't want to talk about anyone on the call. But I would think, okay, my life is going to be threatened. Even though nothing really happened to me, I never had to go to the hospital, but someone's going to hurt me. And instead I say, okay, that story ended. Go through the healing of how to heal that story and know that you are protected when you are in your truth of your heart. And that's a process. The tip I would say is to always listen to your intuition and your heart, because most of us have been through this. We weren't listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Yeah, we weren't listening. I think all of us have had those moments. I certainly have as well. Yeah. You don't listen, you're not aligned. You're not, you simply do not feel whole. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really the point, like when we begin to feel whole, like we accept who we are with all of the stuff that happened to us, and we realize that we don't have to continue to live that life anymore. We can actually get what we want. And if we want something, it can be in the bedroom, it could be sexually, it could be outside of that, then we begin to vibrate that. So I'm all about vibration, because when you are in your flow, and that flow, it's, to me, it's all related. If your sexuality becomes open, your creativity and your confidence start to exude. And then there is no, do I like this guy? Do I need to go on this dating app? There is none of that anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just so full of your own self. You're just having such a freaking fabulous time that the partner will magnetize to you. That's not even an issue.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a non-issue.
Mm-hmm. I love how you just described that because, there is the negative connotation to being full of yourself. But this is a new way to look at it, and I love it. Yeah. Be full of yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
I would also add, in the bedroom, or like, sexually, like, be, decide what you want, especially in relationships. Like, be really clear. People like clarity. Right now, I like clarity. Like, me may not know if I want to marry you, or, I don't know, but I know what I want. I know how to I know how to receive pleasure, and I know what kind of pleasure I desire, because I decided to look into it. I've been reading this book about erogenous zones. There's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you know what turns you on, oh my God, your partner will want to please you that way. Like, let's even just get into the details, because they want to love you in the way you want to be loved. But if you don't know what that is, that's why we butt heads, because we don't know what we want. We're with this part, it just becomes all very muddled.
Mm-hmm.
But when we become more clear about, this is my mission, this is what I'm doing. If you want to join me, fantastic. If you don't, like, let's be friends. I mean, I don't know, like, just have the conversation, just be really real and honest, first and foremost with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So what's coming up for me now too is that piece about, so you need to figure out, well, first of all, you talked about letting go of the story and then figuring out what it is you need to be able to express. So there, I mean, that just makes me think about some of the, some of the things that I deal with on a daily basis in my practice about, when you are looking outside of yourself instead of looking inside, and how important it is to look inside and to express that in whatever way. And of course, obviously, the bedroom is just another place to express, as we said. But what, so when you know what that is, what about and maybe this is meant for more long-term relationships. I don't know, but give me your take, because this is where my head is going. So it's about the relationship between two people, and it's not just about what happens in the bedroom. It is, it's about any kind of relationship with two people. So as you are open and you are expressing what you need, there's also, and you say that person will want to love you and give you, do things the way that you want them done, which is awesome. And then there is the other side of that too, about acknowledging that that person can be and do what you're doing, right? That they can actually ask for what they want, and honoring what they want as well. I think sometimes when we've spent so much time looking outside of ourselves, we forget that we forget about ourselves. But when I think that there is a difference between just being who we are and allowing other people in our life to be who they are. That's really different than simply being demanding. Do you know? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I want to just share something about being demanding. Like, I don't see it that way. I see it as like having a conversation. Like, this is what I'm desiring. Or, just sometimes we say, okay, we just have to have this chemistry, right? We're not going to tell them anything. We just want it to happen. But, if we don't even, and it doesn't have to be verbal. It can be like your hand goes somewhere, or like, whatever. Like you could doesn't, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. But I think that you're right. I think we have to also allow the other person to communicate in whatever way they feel comfortable to us, what they're desiring. And I would also add, we're all triggered. Romantic relationships are all about, if we can get over our parental situations when we were children, then we'll let go of a lot of stuff. I know. Yeah, but it's
Stuff,
true.
yeah.
It's true. Like the father, mother, all that stuff, dynamic, the craziness that we grew up with, it's played out all the time in our romantic relationships. And when we can just totally, like in kind of an extension of what you were saying, totally just be present with that person and like hold space for them as they're whatever doing their thing, and always with love, from that. And you're gonna have fights, you're gonna do the blame game or whatever, but come back to the love of why you decided to even befriend this person. Then it's like, okay, they're going through something, or I'm going through something. Like, let's take a step back and take a breath, right? Take a breath and just say, okay, where are we? And, that has helped me tremendously in intimate relationships, as well as with clients. Sometimes clients trigger us, right? We're like, things happen, things were triggered, and it's natural, we're human beings. But when we can just take a breath and be like, okay, what do we have to learn from this? What's being taught to me right now? Take a day, take 10 days, take 3 months. I don't know. Take the time. We're not running a sprint. We're living our lives. So it becomes so much more like, it's just like, okay, I get to be who I am now in the time that I need to. And it's with sex as well, with intimacy. It's all about taking the time. And not, nobody likes it quick and fast, maybe sometimes, but, you like it slow and really relishing it, like that makes it so much more enjoyable. And then you have so many memories about it. So I would just say taking the time is super important.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Yeah, I think what your entire chapter and what you've been talking about today, I think it offers not just a process that women can go through to get their needs met, but I think there's the underlying message here too is about offering ourselves permission. We don't have to be blocked. We don't have to say no to ourselves anymore. That's kind of old school. Let's toss that and start to just say, yay, we are who we are, and we're going to make this happen.
Yeah. I watched a movie. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. It's called Escape last weekend. I don't know if it's popular. I just saw it on Hulu. Anyway, it was just, I think that a lot of women might relate to this, like it was this couple, and in I don't know, the UK or something, and she would just like want to have sex, and she was just really like not into it, like totally just not into it. And it was repeated. And then she had to leave. Like, she was just too much for her, children, everything. She had to go. And she left, and then she came back. But what I wanted to share about that is that, if we can have the conversation, if we're able to even verbalize it's not necessarily about the other person most of the time. It's our own internal stories that we're not allowing, like you just said, we're not allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to even say what we want. So the person has no idea that this is even going on for years. And so then we're like, okay, we're getting a divorce, but wait, we didn't even discuss it. And I'm not saying yes or no to the relationship. I'm just saying at least give that person the ability, the space to understand you. We don't take the time to understand each other. And I think that is, it's really important with intimacy. We're not in the age of we're just having children to procreate. We're creating, we're birthing something all the time. And that relationship is also really important for our growth.
Yeah, I agree. I agree fully. So the one part of the book, I just want to touch on this because we're almost out of time, but the one part of the book that, your chapter that I really picked up on was using your, using your sexual desires to help you manifest. Fascinating.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Oh my God. Yeah. We could have spent a whole session on that. But so I want to share a little, I don't know if what I wrote in that exactly, I don't remember, but so when I was really young, a friend of mine, when I was at that time, showed me like just about self-pleasuring. We were like 8 or something, and I would fantasize, just like fantasize about stuff because it gave me a lot of pleasure. And I actually continued that practice all my life. And then I met this woman who, Laura Ann King. I don't know if anybody knows her. And I took a course on orgasmic manifestation, and it was actually the same thing, but also with a partner. You just kind of begin to focus on whatever it is that you want. Your house, it could be very kind of material stuff, and because you're in a space of creation. Right? You're just like in this space of anything can happen. It's like this open space of, that's where our flow is. So, and it happens. Even these latent, like this whole thing with this other person that happened to me 4 years ago, that was my desire, like all my life. And I really didn't think it was ever happening until I decided, okay, let me just see. Maybe it could happen. But you're right. I gave myself the permission, but it was something that I always wanted. So I would just suggest for anybody who's interested in that is to pleasure themselves in whatever way. Some people like to take a warm shower. It doesn't have to be touching themselves, but it's nice to feel. For some people, that's their language is touch. So, and to just feel into what you are really desiring to manifest and allow the story to just unfold in those moments of deep pleasure and see what happens.
Wow. Very cool. I think once people start reading this book, I think there'll be some big manifesting happening. That's very cool. Okay, so I have one last question for you, Gila, and I always ask everybody on the show. Can you share one fun or funny thing that you don't normally share with people? You seem pretty open. I'm not sure whether there is anything, but if there is something that you can share, that would be great.
I'm thinking about what a funny thing. I guess there's lots of funny things, but I suppose. I think actually just to be surprised, I was just pleasantly surprised. I don't know how funny it is, and I don't know if I can actually make it into a joke, but I was just pleasantly surprised that I could actually have this much fun in my life. From a chronic trauma person that has had a lot of challenges in her life. And I was always pretty happy kind of person, but underneath it all, I was really a bit distraught. A person that writes poetry obviously has a lot of emotion. But to finally, just be like, oh my God, I can just breathe in the air and not have to worry or think hard about anything and allow things to flow effortlessly in my life. I guess I just want to share that with anyone who's here listening to us today. Like you can actually have really a full life by just allowing yourselves, just laughing at yourself, just enjoying the moment. It's all about presence to me. And we didn't really talk about that, but also, with a partner, it's just the more that you become present with everyone in your life, especially yourself, things can get very enjoyable and funny.
Yeah, very fast. Yeah, yeah, awesome. So cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you being here, Gila. It's, you've given lots of tidbits and little tips for, being able to, for women to be able to take and run with. Um, or I could think of a couple other descriptors, but I probably shouldn't go there. We don't have enough time. Anyway, I do really appreciate you being here. It's been great. I thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. It's been awesome. Very appreciative. And listeners, so wow, huh? Wow. This was a great episode, and I'm very, very thrilled to have had Gila here. And I want to thank you for listening. And remember that every single time you step out of wherever you are, whether it's in the bedroom, whether it's in your kitchen, whether it's wherever, when you are aligning with yourself, or when you are learning something, or creating awareness, or setting intention, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If it's about you, it's kicking your own ass. So I want to say thank you for coming out today to have a little piece of that, and we will see you next time. If you like today's podcast, hit subscribe at the bottom on your way out, and come find me at cravemorelife.com for even more DIY ass kicking.